Welcome back to Scavenger Workshop. There was a lot of confusion on how to assemble the Scavenger Drives version 2. So a good buddy of mine, Bobby, he took it upon himself and he made a wonderful tutorial. So without further ado, check out his tutorial.
First off is the motor. You have to cut off a piece of the shaft here. You'll see I've already cut this. I used a Dremel. If you've got an angle grinder, that probably works a lot quicker, but Dremel gets right through it as well. The sprocket here actually faces the motor, and it's going to be about a ½ inch away from this plate here. You want to check the measurement based off of your foot drive and just make sure that the chain lines up with it. You could always move it later and just leave a little bit more than you think you need here. I've placed mine about a ½ inch. It's maybe a little bit less than a ½ inch there. You can just screw this down with the Allen wrench on these 2 points. Because of my foot shells, I'm actually gonna have to take off a little bit of this as well. I'll do that later, but got to take off about half of that to make sure that it fits inside the foot shell. All right, next up here, we've got all the pieces for the foot shell. I got these cut at Send Cut Send. This is 1/8 inch aluminum. You're gonna wanna take a file, just kind of hit the edges there. You're gonna be working with these a lot, so you don't want those sharp edges. Just file off those edges. You should be good to go. Let's talk about spacers. You can order all of these spacers, or you can get yourself a tube from Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. This is actually a ½ inch aluminum tube. It's a little wider than a ½ inch on the outside. The inside is 3/8 inch. Fits a 3/8 inch bolt perfectly. All right, so cutting the spacers is pretty easy. This is our ½ inch pipe here. We've got our measurement, calipers. Mark it with the Sharpie. And slide it in to my mark. Just start turning. Then at this point, just make sure that your measurement is correct. That looks perfect. But if it's not perfect, it's just some sandpaper, grind it down. Hit it a little bit with the file on the inside, just kind of scrape it back and forth. Make sure that the bolts slide through nice and easily. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to thread them through and struggling with that in case you got to take them apart. For the most part, you can cut these exactly as it says in the Bill of Materials. However, there is one part where I would say you want to make sure that you've got your foot shells, and it's in between these 2 dog bones. That's got to fit perfectly in whatever foot shells you're using. Even if you cut these a little bit wrong, if they're a little bit short, you can always use a washer. If they're a little bit long, you can just take some sandpaper, scrape it back and forth until you've got the proper length here. Always check it with the caliper. All right, we're going to start putting the frame on here. First piece is the one with the giant hole in the middle. The slot configuration does matter. This is my left foot. So if R2 is facing me, this is the center foot right in the center of frame. This is his left foot. This is his right foot. He's facing me. The motor goes to the inside. The chain goes to the outside. So we're going to slip this on with the slot towards the front, facing me. Remember, when you put on that back frame there as well, that slot needs to face the same exact configuration. So that just kind of slips on for right now. The next step is this little house-shaped piece here. The point points downward. There are pre-drilled holes that are also tapped in the motor. These are number 8 3/8 inch bolts. So we're going to put some thread locker on there, screw those in. All right, so next up here, we are going to put on the front frame piece. Remember, the slots need to line up on that. However, before we do that, I like to put the chain on. This is 19 links from Vex Robotics. It's 19 total. You got a little chain tool, pop it out, connect them back. But it's a little difficult to get the chain on once you've got the frame together, or, you know, if you're so inclined, you can use the chain tool afterwards. I like to go ahead and do this now, though. Put on some gloves. This chain's pretty gross. But at this point now, I use a sanding sponge here that kind of gets me at the right level there, gives my motor a little bit of support. We're going to take this front frame piece and we're going to go through these two holes that are right next to the diamond. They're going to go in these top holes right here. We're going to use the short bolts, and these approximately 20 millimeter spacers go on through. And then we're going to use some nylon lock nuts on the back side there. All right, next step here, we're going to put these two top plates on. This is where your foot shell comes in real handy here, because you'll know what the distance is between those two, and just making sure that everything aligns here. So we're going to use the long bolts here, go through. We've got the short spacer first, and then the dog bone piece there. Make sure that it is in between that home shaped piece and the outer frame. Then you're going to have the long one. I actually know that I'm going to need a little spacer here. So I put in just one washer there to get about 1/8 of an inch extra. And then I've got the medium one for the outside. I shaved that one down just about 1/8 of an inch. Let's go through that other dog bone, the medium size spacer on the outside, or rather the inside. This is actually where regular nuts will come in handy, because that way you can put these together. Make sure that they're tight, but easy to take off after you measure it with the foot shell there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the other side here. All right, so at this point, my foot shell should just slide right on. Nothing to it. All right, we're going to go ahead and leave those nuts on there and a little bit loose, because we're going to put the wheels on next. So next up, we've got this Coulson wheel. It has the sprocket that's integrated. We've got these big flat, big fender washers for the outside, but we've also got a spacer here. And remember, the outside diameter of this spacer is a little bit larger than 1/2 inch. So we're going to take some sandpaper, just kind of scrub that thing down until it slips right through this wheel without any resistance. It's going to help that wheel spin. All right, so we're going to mount this to the front here, get it around that chain, put the fender washers on the outside, slip a bolt through it. All right, so the back wheel, another Vex Omni wheel. Again, another spacer. It's cut to the proper length. Got to shave it down again, and you want that just to slip right through and have no resistance whatsoever. Whoop. Then you've got some big 3/4 inch spacers. These have 1/2 inch inside diameter, 3/4 inch outside diameter. You're going to put those on there. Go ahead and mount that on the front. All right, the final one here is the bottom bolt. Go through that. Got the short spacer. As you can see there, I've got some room. I think I cut that one a little too short, so looks like 2 washers will do it. Just use those washers as a shim. You got your spacing correct. Then I've got my big spacer. Go through there. Looks like I can use one more washer for shim. Yep. Nylon lock nut. Okay. All right. Final step here is using the Dremel, cutting off the ends of those bolts. I actually have some low profile nylon lock nuts I got off of Amazon here. Oh, put them over here. Look at that. You can see here they're almost half the height. Almost half there of the standard 3/8. So that should. All right, So now the foot shell should just go right over it. Feed the cables through. Slides right on. We have a finished scavenger drive.